Okay guys, today we're going to try close reading by color. It's a little different than the assignments that we've done in the past. I was inspired by today's creative day, so I decided to find a new way for us to close read our page on the constellations. Okay, so this is actually a bookmark that you may want to print or you could just recreate. And I really liked it. I found it from someone else, another teacher who had created it, but I liked the rhymes. So the first rhyme is pink makes you think. So they want you to highlight places in the text that make you think deeply. Now, when they ask you to think deeply, sometimes that means it doesn't, I guess the best way to describe it is don't overthink it. So that means that if you read that and you're like, that's cool, that's what that means. Yellow is your fellow. Anytime you see a new character, I actually don't want the word character, I already changed it in the other place. A new topic pops up, highlight it. So that means that anytime that you see something that is another part of a constellation or a name or something else that has to do with constellations and it's a slightly different part of it, then you would highlight that in yellow. If we were doing a page about a biography, which is about a people or a person, then we would do yellow is your fellow and we would highlight anytime we saw a new person. Last one, blue is for you. Anytime you see an unknown word, highlight it. Or maybe even a phrase or a sentence that is confusing, or something that even if it's not confusing yet, it's something you want to do more research about, which is always interesting. Okay, so take note, what Mrs. Smith did was I actually cut my paper using an image cropper so that I could fit the reading on this slide with the bookmark. So you don't have to do that, I just chose to do it. And what I'd like you to do now is to take a moment, and your goal is to try to think of two things to highlight in pink that make you think, two things in yellow, which are a new topic, and two things or more in blue that you find an unknown word or something that's confusing or something that you want to do more research on. So pause me now so that you can do that. Okay, so what I figured I'd do is I would show you what Mrs. Smith highlighted using that same strategy. So my pink makes me think. My first one are, there are simply too many to count. The idea that there are so many stars in the sky that you can't count how many there are, that makes me think. And then also, people have told stories about star patterns in the sky since the beginning of time. That also makes me think, because I think to myself, what kind of stories did they tell? What cultures? Is it part of America, North America, United States? Or is this about other countries or other continents? It definitely had me going. Then I moved to yellow. And this is where I found, and I was like, all right, these are words I'm probably going to have to remember when I do my questions, or maybe if the teacher was giving me a test on this. So the first one I highlighted was the word pattern, then constellations, because those two actually went together. And then at the bottom, I saw this huge list of constellations, and I said, I probably should remember those. Then lastly, for blue, I only found one, but this is the one where I was kind of confused, where it said, some people think these patterns were thought to be gods or heroes of a culture. And I understand that there are some cultures that believe in more than one god. We believe in one god. But to think that your heroes become stars in the sky, I will tell you that if you've ever watched The Lion King, Mufasa becomes a constellation. He's a hero in the sky. And it makes me think that maybe that's an homage or a relation to how other cultures have taken their heroes and they've said, look at that star constellation of bright stars looks like someone with a sword, and St. George once saved us and he used a sword. I bet that's St. George. Okay. So in the next part, you can see that I split my paper now so that I can read it and answer questions. So I'd like you to read it again and answer the questions, and then come back to me to check your answers. Question 1, could you ever count all of the stars in the sky? Well, actually, that was one of the pink things that I highlighted. There are too many stars to count. Now, here's something interesting. The stars don't go away, and the constellations don't go away, but our position on Earth, and as the Earth moves, we see different constellations during different seasons of the year. So of course, our Earth is moving, and it's moving around the sun. So we can see different constellations during different seasons. So right now, we're still in the season of spring, almost to summer. So we're going to be seeing constellations that have to do with then. We cannot see the constellations from winter. So that means we wouldn't even be able to count those stars. That doesn't mean they go away, though. Now, what is a constellation? Luckily, they give us an explanation. They say that some bright stars, maybe I'll start with the word constellations. A constellation is a pattern of bright stars. And if you think about that, the pattern is when the bright stars are put together, then they basically played connect the dots. And we've taken those over time. You can have your own fun and look for your own constellations and make your own designs, a little bit like when we stare up into the sky during the day and we think about the shapes of the clouds. Now, this last part asks us to name 3 famous constellations. They gave us so many really neat constellations. So let's name them. So I'm going to name them all, and you could name 3 or more. We have the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper. You'll notice that Mrs. Smith is making a list, and I'm using, you can see these commas. Make sure you put a comma in between your list. They capitalize Orion. He's one of those heroes that people mention. Then we have Hydra, which is actually a monster defeated by Hercules. We have Scorpius, which you could probably tell by the name, sounds like it's a scorpion. And then we have Taurus, which is the bull. And so those are the names that they give us. All right, I hope you've enjoyed close reading by color, something a little creative today. Mrs. Smith actually used, I don't know if you can really see it, but I used neon crayons and sparkly crayons just to be creative and to have fun today. So I hope you've enjoyed, and keep creating, guys.